Don't do that.
Right, okay, give me the link.
Hello. How's it going? I don't have the link.
I've got it, I'll get it, don't worry.
I don't have the link. Hello. Welcome to your ma. Just we had a technical problem there. I scheduled the live stream. Everything was good to go, and then for some reason there was no go live button, and it didn't kick in. I don't know why. No idea why. So hopefully some people will jump on here instead, and then you can let me know how the audio is coming across.
Okay, here we go.
We've got 5-7 people. We had about 40 on the other one, so hopefully they'll just migrate over. Leave a comment, let me know if the audio is okay. Thank you for joining us. Sorry about this. I have no idea what the problem was. It was fine last week, but there we go. Welcome to Deborah Walker. Hello. That was a carry on, man.
Right, I want me to copy and paste these comments into the new text. You've got comments.
Aye, cool. My beautiful wife has offered to copy and paste your comments from the other stream, the failed stream, into the chat box in this new stream. In recognition that you guys turned up on time. We were here as well. But I'm unsure what happened with the live button when the scheduled stream was ready to go. So episode 2, let me know what you thought. It was interesting watching it back. One of the benefits of this series is that I remember doing all of it, which I can't say of the first series. Sequences that particularly resonated with me at the time doing it was the exam algorithm stuff. Young Erin Bleakley, a cracking name, eh? A cracking name, Erin Bleakley. That's the kind of name that of a character that is in a massive franchise. Do you know what I mean? About being an extraordinary young person. Imagine it was like Harry Potter or something. Do you know what I mean? But it was just about this lassie who was terrorizing John Swinney. Do you know what I mean? Year after year. So that one was resonated a lot with me. I also enjoyed the land ownership sequence, both parts of it, and as you could see from the film, you know, actually got along pretty well with Dee, the landowner. And it's different when you are dealing with it's different when you're dealing with the reality of someone that represents a certain thing rather than dealing with the stereotype or the straw man that you might have about it. Because he was nice, he was a naturist. I know that sounds a bit mad because he has grouse shooting on his land, but I would suspect most emotionally normal people in Dee's company would probably have felt the way that I felt about him, which was he was brand new. That doesn't change that land inequality is an issue, and we shouldn't view it through the prism of personality. But apologies to anybody that thought I was going to shoot him. Deborah says, I felt super proud of Erin. Good for her for standing up for herself and so many other young people who may not have had the opportunity. Absolutely. And what is notable about activism that emerges in working class communities is that the activism is spearheaded by people who have very little interest in activism and often have very little interest in politics. They become activists because they have to go and fight for something. So this is like a sidebar to what they actually want to do. Activism's not a kind of, is not, they're not making their values visible in a sense of this is my cause or this is my hobby horse. It's not a kind of, it's not like a handbag that they wear to say, I do these things and I'm also interested in these causes. They have to down everything else they're doing and they have to go and fight for basic fairness. And that's, I think, what distinguishes certain types of activism that you see is when people not necessarily just get a moral calling, but when something directly impacts them and they see nothing being done. And then they think, well, it's fallen to me. I'll have to do something about it. Elaine Miller says, Darren, the conversations with the men who had gambled and used knives reduced me, the honesty, tears. It's so important to have conversations. Thank you so much for your work. Thank you, Elaine. Yeah, these were powerful conversations. And I think that it's amazing because the reason the conversations go well is because I try to create a dynamic where they can just be themselves and just be honest. And there are no leading questions, and I don't necessarily have an agenda. If I do have an agenda, the agenda is to try and show another side to these issues that doesn't get a lot of airtime. So, for example, drawing out what is the thought that goes through a young person's mind when they're drawing a blade from their jacket about to plunge it into some other young person's heart. Do you know what I mean? What is going through their mind? Why are they doing that? And you've seen yourself from the men I spoke to, they take full responsibility for their behaviour. And it's interesting, you know, that's a theme constantly. And people that I talk to, the gambling section, the violence section, or people taking responsibility for the economic future of their community. You know, this idea that some people just don't take responsibility, like it doesn't stand up to scrutiny when you get out there and talk to people. Anne-Marie Ward, hello Anne-Marie. Do you think our Scottish politicians can make a difference in our wee neck of the woods? Absolutely. Absolutely they can. But there are issues around the sort of advice that they get, because politicians are politicians. Most of them are lawyers, right? Landlords. They don't have the social experience required to take decisions on most of the issues that will arrive on their desks. So they turn to advisors, and often when they arrive in post, they're plugged into a pre-existing network of advisors comprised of experts, political advisors, and ultimately, if you don't have some aspect of lived experience in there, then you miss out on some of the nuances around certain issues. And this is reflected in a lot of the policy decisions of the last 30 years, particularly in relation to the drug crisis. Given the influence of bankers and corporations appear to have our politicians across the world. All right, that was the previous part of that question that I just answered. All right, okay, thanks, Becky. My beautiful wife, we're celebrating our 1-year wedding anniversary today. We're going to properly celebrate it on Friday. But she has been very supportive tonight of me and my technical problems. She's even just given me her laptop with all your comments from the original stream, which I'm just about to go through. You could have closed Pornhub down, Becky, for goodness sake. That's your Tuesday night's ruined. Can you put a comment up on the other feed, Darren? I was sitting on the other chat with no audio or video, just to give folks a heads up that this feed is working. I think that's already been sorted, but thanks for pointing it out, Kyle. It should be sorted now. We did our best. It was a YouTube issue. Unfortunately, had that all scheduled to go, and then there was no go live button. Becky's getting the word out. I'm going to read your comments from the other chat as well, right? In case there's people who can't be arsed writing them out again. Harkett says, watching your show, Darren, I have feelings of both pride in you for raising these issues and anger when I look back at my life, having experienced all of this subject matter. I'm still living it now. Absolutely. And credit to everyone else involved in the programme as well. Obviously, I get a lot of credit because I'm presenting it, but a lot of work goes into these films behind the scenes. Producers, the director. So big team effort. Obviously, I take the fall if everybody hates it. So I get the credit if it goes well, but it's not all down to me. Anastasia Connor, great name. Great episode. Loved your money splitting experiment and the fact that you raised the question of land ownership. Thank you. We do our best. I'd love to know what you think about the recently reported fact that many obviously middle class people claim to be working class. Well, that just shows you how little, how poorly understood the concept of class is now, because it's been flushed from public discourse. So people think class is just another kind of aspect of identity where you decide, what class you are or how you feel that day. Obviously, identity is a part of it, and we explore a lot of aspects of that in these films, but there are less tenuous concepts that are easy to measure, are more objective. Income, how educated you are, health, so on and so forth. Papa Boy says, good job, this isn't a call centre. You would be pumped. Very, very good. That's cracking, that's cracking, Pater. That's cracking, Pater.
Are they still, are those comments still coming in live? Because you might just be commenting today.
I think we've probably got most people over now. Have migrated over. We've still got 13 people waiting. If you are waiting here, this stream is broken. Go here. Control V.
Control V, see what happens, right?
Okay. Right, let's see. Got through some of these comments. I wish I could have watched this episode when I was studying space, place, and community at uni last year. So much links in with the theories we were studying. That's the thing about class. Like, there's so much. It's the thing that's frustrating. There's so much evidence out there for its existence in all of the dimensions that we touch on briefly in these films. And there's even stuff that we didn't get the chance to go into, like different, a piece of research. I'm tired. A piece of research that was conducted in an American university, which found that upper class people were likelier to behave unethically for a number of reasons. One, they don't experience the same social pressure not to behave unethically because they are quite remote from the rest of society. And also just as a result of their whole entire perception of behaving ethically being fundamentally different, they were also found to be ruder, to look at their phones during meetings, for example. And so this kind of cuts against the common image of upper class people being, imbued and endowed with all of the highest values. In actual fact, when you look at our society currently and how some things are panning out, you see that clearly people with a lot of money often feel very little obligation to the rest of society. And that is a problem. Would you ever consider getting involved in politics? I am involved in politics. I'm just not a professional politician. What I do is very political. I'm a campaigner. I'm a musician of 20 years experience doing political hip hop. I write political articles in newspapers every week. Everything I do is a political intention. Everything I do is a political angle. Am I going to get into professional politics? I doubt it very much. My understanding is that politicians don't initiate change, they manage and direct change. I'm interested in the people who drive it from the outside of politics. Obviously, you need politics, you need politicians to some extent. But I would like to see more people from working class backgrounds and also other areas, more people of colour, more women, more LGBT people. And I'm not saying that for brownie points. That's my true belief. I understand that people who have a certain degree of life experience on an issue have something additional to offer, as well as conviction about things or a theoretical understanding about things. I think currently, and this is the case in both London and in Holyrood, that the social economic composition of the parliaments is not diverse enough. So this leads to a kind of prevailing sensibility where even the stuff that people claim to disagree about, they still agree fundamentally on the basics of how a society should be organised, i.e., your opinion is not as much of value to a politician as a banker's opinion. Let's see. Worst boiler room set ever. Cheers, Bearded Scott. It's probably that other decide for us what class we are, sadly. Enjoying the show, it resonates. I'm from a working class background. Hobbies and interests. My job is professional. I earn decent wage, but I take offence if anyone describes me as middle class. Yeah, I pulled a Channel 4 presenter up for that once for accusing me of being middle class. I was just joking, but you know what it's like when you sound working class, even when you joke, somebody thinks you're going to knock them out. Wild Eskdale. Hi, Darren. Kevin from Langham here. Hello, Kevin. Amazing. I phoned you guys the day that it was on the news that you won. But the phone rang out. Clearly, you had all fucked off to some pub and got a lock-in or something. But congratulations. I was so happy. I was so happy for you guys. Enjoyed the episode and thanks again for coming to see us. Not at all. Hopefully I'll see you again. Rob McDowell, Darren, do you agree that often those with the least will share what they have to ensure people aren't left without? Yes, and there's a couple of reasons why, evolutionarily speaking, this kind of reciprocal altruism is fundamental in communities where resources are scarce. So a culture, people are socialised in a culture where they share things and they look out for each other because this works better for everyone. If you think about a community being a bunch of individuals, but they're all networked, whether it's because through people that they know or whether it's natural networks or artificial networks, those networks are their own entity with their own kind of consciousness and their own, they can, they act to avoid injury, and that's where you get group behaviour and emergent properties within groups like obesity and certain behaviours and sometimes even attitudes. And, depending on whether these networks are positively or negatively charged, then it just depends on what is being shared about, But the people who are interdependent within a community, it's almost part of their nature. Would you say there is now an underclass? Absolutely. I wrote a book about it. And, while the underclass, I would say, are the people who are experiencing severe adversity, destitution, political exclusion, right? who are not represented well in media. So you're talking about refugees, asylum seekers, you're talking about homeless people, people with substance misuse issues. You're talking about women fleeing abusive relationships. People, whenever they're reported in news, there always seems to be some fundamental problem with how it's reported, because news hasn't travelled to certain levels of the media that certain issues shouldn't be discussed in certain ways. Whether it's in relation to immigrants getting their vaccines before such and such, or, some poor guy just lost the plot and strangled his wife, or on so on and so forth. That's the underclass. That's the underclass there, right? Do you think the lines between class have become blurred in recent years as the middle class has grown, but people retain their regional accents, thus they cling on to an identity from a past life? Possibly. I mean, I've had hundreds of messages in the last couple of weeks since these films went out, and people are saying they don't retain their accents. They change their accents, sometimes even changing from a Scottish to an English dialect, right? But they might bring their original accent back when they go home. As Jane Stuart Smith pointed out, the sociolinguist, in the first episode, it's highly unlikely that somebody becomes socially mobile without making some modification to their speech. And people who aren't socially mobile, often one indicator of their social mobility is issues with communication, not just how they communicate, but how they're interpreted by other people. Think about a wee guy going into a courtroom, stressed out his box, choking for a fag. He doesn't even possess the vocabulary to describe how he feels unless he's raging. So in situations like that, a person's, lack of range in terms of vocabulary and articulation becomes a major area for them to be penalised unconsciously. If you go into a court, listen to how the judges speak and listen to how the people in the dock speak, and that'll tell you something about class. I've seen middle class folk merging into my community as if it's cool, or as a busman's holiday of sorts. I say this as I've sat drinking in local trendy boozers, heard and seen some snidey comments. And I understand I think you're describing gentrification there. Gentrification, I think, sometimes works better in some places than it does in others. I think in Govan Hill, you have some good examples of how people kind of moving into our community to create a business or an enterprise of some sort can actually add a certain quality to the area, as long as they understand the area and as long as they've kind of negotiated entry in some way. They don't just parachute in. People just like to be treated with a bit of respect, funnily enough. No many working class politicians, absolutely, and there were far more working class politicians pre the Blair years. So something about Blairism, which, while obviously being an improvement on what came before, also entrenched this kind of society where your social mobility becomes contingent on getting rubber stamped by a middle class person. I was brought up, right, hang on, I've read a few of yours. Hey Darren, good show. I grew up in one of the poorest estates in Europe, and now I'm trying my hand in media as a content creator too. Good stuff, Trev. Good luck. In London for scans, but back Thursday. We'll catch up with show then. Interesting to hear you talk always. No bother. Take it easy. Thanks for tuning in. Alan Taylor. Grow up on housing scheme. Watched many people with great potential leaving school for it not to be fulfilled without career opportunities, turn to drugs, drink and gambling. 25 years later, still the same. Absolutely. Rosie Kane. Hi, Rosie. It's my auntie. It's not just about our class getting into parliament. It's about being true to yourself and representing the community who elected you. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's get through. Elaine Miller. The lack of diversity is shocking. My daughter did very well in a law school at a university. However, I couldn't afford her to go further. That's heartbreaking, isn't it? For a parent. So you know that your child has the ability. You know that your child can achieve at a high level, and you can't afford to continue to invest in their education. And the people who insist that you should have to pay got a free education. I mean, and they're the ones running about talking about meritocracy. Do you know what I mean? Apologies if anyone's on here who's not from the Central Belt, Scotland area. I'm kind of not. I'm not dialing my accent in the night. I'm very tired. Do you think private schools should be abolished in Scotland? Yes. However, before we demolish them, go into them, find out why kids who go to them do so well. Is it something about how they're designed? Is it something about the fact that there's not a place in a private school that you can stand without looking at a massive window onto some kind of natural beauty? Do you think that that might create the hormonal conditions within a person conducive to learning? Do you think it might have something to do with the fact that they all know how to play a musical instrument? And that the grounds are all designed with optimizing human potential in mind? It's not about, right, let's create this wee bric-a-brac thing next to a river and pile a bunch of wains in, because we need shelf stackers in 10 years, and Amazon's going to be very disappointed if we're not ramming their fulfillment centres full of working class teenagers. Anne-Marie Ward, Darren, lots of working class people will no doubt identify lots, which is great, as it may give them a surer foot in such situations. Absolutely. This is part of what my work is about, and I'm very conscious about it. People are experiencing society in isolation a lot of the time. And because this language of class is not accessible as it was before, and people don't use it so readily, then people start to doubt their assumptions or intuitions about what is going on in their lives. And this is no accident. If you look at how call centre structure breaks for staff, it's not just about efficiency. It's also about making sure that staff don't get too pally with each other and start talking to each other about what it's like to work there, and start joining the trade union and doing things that people would normally do to offset difficult conditions. And I guess that it kind of is analogous to the general feeling in society among people who sense that maybe they're being judged because of ABC, their accent, where they come from, yada, yada, yada. But they doubt their intuitions, and they look out into a culture where most of the prominent people either aren't talking about class, or they're talking some nonsense about meritocracy, which to believe in meritocracy is more like believing in a superstition. It's not real. It's a nice ideal, you know. I like the idea that there might be a God, but I can't actually verify it. Do you know what I mean? Guys, do you ever think in the future we will have Scottish landowners on the telly telling us we ruined it, taking the land back? This is the thing I admired about Dee. Most people who own land in that sort of scale, they don't like to be seen. I did interview a guy from Buccleuch Estates, and it was all about the business. You know, it was all about the business. How different do you think your principal would be if you had a middle class upbringing? No way of knowing. The thing is, it's not a matter of principles. Most people have the same principles. Most people believe in fairness. Most people believe in equality. Most people believe in the welfare state. It's about how these principles are applied. I mean, I believe in law and order, just like Tom, the Tory, believes in law and order. But we both believe in quite different types of law and order. He probably believes, and I glean this from my time with him and various other beliefs that he holds, and punitive measures. He believes that prison is not just about having your liberty taken away and that in itself being the punishment, but also that prison itself should be fucking miserable. And that would act as a deterrent for crime, even though crime rises inexorably, almost in relation to the number of prisons and the prison population, which indicates it's no deterrent, right? No deterrent whatsoever. So we have the same principles, but they've got a different kind of twist. I'm today I've been writing a chapter in my book all about conservatism, my experience of it, my thoughts on it. It's interesting. That's probably my favourite kind of stuff, writing about stuff that's a bit alien to me. Trying to understand it. Chris, spot on with the comments about Govan Hill. Cheers, man. I struggled to get through college with my broad Clydeside accent. I've said postcode. I found out I had to use my uncle's address to merely receive a reply. How can a person battle to receive equality? I'm not surprised. I got my first speaking gigs on the radio as a result of the fact that I worked in a temporary job in Next at Braehead when I was about 17. And I worked every shift they gave me. And I'm talking some crazy shifts, like all the nutters that are going on Boxing Day at Early Bells, all you head cases. I was there 2 hours before that, right? Which meant I was up 3 hours before that to get there to make sure there was enough shite on the shop floor. And a lot of the people who did that job got kept on, and a lot of us didn't get kept on. And then we subsequently found that people were being screened based on their postcodes. It's fine. I didn't like that work anyway. But I had other opportunities. Some people don't. Darren, another outstanding episode. I am a modern studies teacher at St Andrews Secondary in East End where Erin attended. Hello, Thomas. I'm sure you're very proud of Erin. She is a force to be reckoned with. And as I said earlier on in the stream, this was a young woman who was focused on a specific career. She wanted to be a vet, right? She wasn't interested in becoming an activist. She wasn't interested in becoming a poster child for these causes. A lot of people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds are thrust into political activity as a result of being unable to accept how unfair a situation is and realizing that no one is going to redress that imbalance for them. I really enjoyed the time that I spent with Erin, and the school was very generous in terms of allowing us to film there and loiter generally, which is pretty much what I do when I'm not on camera. I'm just loitering, looking for places to smoke. The exam fiasco explicitly placed a label on young people that schools and teachers at the coalface spend decades trying to deconstruct. Absolutely. It just shows you, doesn't it, how politicians can just undermine years of work. Just like that. And how can John Swinney go from 1 week insisting that the algorithm's fine and that it's protecting the integrity of the system to a few days later apologising? It's a bit disingenuous. Just come clean. Just say the system's integrity is derived from how much inequality it produces. If it doesn't produce a certain amount of inequality, people don't think the system works. Just come out and say it, John. Okay, I have marked the scripts and they get spoon-fed the answers. Right. Anne-Marie. Hello, Anne-Marie. Great watching you grow and achieve. You're reaching across the classes. We need to remove the fear that we are all controlled to suffer from an early age. Absolutely. And it's nice to hear from you. Jean, it is sometimes the other way around. Some people like to identify themselves as middle class. Private schools have small classes. Absolutely, they do. That's just one feature of the independent schooling system. And I have spent some time in independent schools, both in the capacity as a broadcaster and also visiting because I was invited to come and speak to children about inequality. And what you find is there's a real desire within these institutions to understand more, but these institutions are not designed to be open to certain aspects of reality. I mean, by their very nature, they're exclusive. So it means that even when you've got young people with an interest in poverty, they may not be getting the information that might better inform them. And then they're on pathways towards high-flying careers anyway, where all that interest in these issues will be slowly socialised out of them and replaced with corporate values, which don't necessarily align at all. Let me get some more. Tracy Wild, I was waiting on the old analogy of asking the landowner for a fight, since that's how his family got to own it hundreds of years ago. That is pretty good. I seen that at the front of why is that name out of my head, man? The Green Party politician who wrote the best book on land ownership. And his name's just totally Andy Whiteman. Sorry, Andy. I know you're not watching anyway. You'll be busy reading angry tweets, no doubt. Paul Delaney. Parents living in more affluent areas are more likely to defer school start for their child, so they start school older than those parents living in deprived areas. Do you have any thoughts on this? Yes. My kids will be going to school the first opportunity that they can go to school. Could Daniel have went this year, aye? If not for the pandemic?
No, he was born on the cusp, so we got a choice.
Oh, well, I didn't get the choice. I've just been informed that we actually got a choice when to send Daniel to school. But I've just been informed after the choice has been made. This is a year of marriage, folks. Do you know what I mean? 1 year of marriage. Right. Liam Mason, hearing you talk about social mobility in episode 1 was so refreshing. I knew that moving away from no opportunity working in bars to more opportunity elsewhere was essential, but needed a big risk. Absolutely. And I think part of social class is about your margin for error and your sense of possibility and having someone to absorb the costs that come with taking a risk that doesn't pan out. I mean, how many people can afford to go to university multiple times? You know, just go for early, get some good drug experiences in. Do you know what I mean? For the first one, few great drug experiences, walking about thinking you're at uni, but you're not really at uni, and then go back later and smash it. Who's paying for all that? Do you know what I mean? You touched on it in the first episode with Hugo, but what are your thoughts on Scotland having a hidden middle class? Well, they're not going to be hidden for long, right? We're getting warmer, guys. We're getting warmer. Do you think this will change in the future? I don't think it necessarily. I don't think drawing attention to this is contingent on these people feel comfortable enough to reveal themselves. If we want to know where they are, we just have to look at all our institutions, right? We have to look at criminal justice, health, politics, media. They're all there. If you go back and watch the Swin of U-turn, all of the SNP MSPs clap. Why did they clap then? They clapped because I've not been into the parliament to cut all their hands off. They clapped because in our parliament, for some reason, you're allowed to clap, which is the first thing that I would get shot of if I was a politician. I would be firing a white paper over at the First Minister's podium from wherever I was sitting in that debating chamber and just say, read that the new, right? Ban fucking clapping. Because it just looks smug as fuck. You know what I mean? Just sitting there oh, yes, look at us. Do you know what I mean? People drop them like flies in the streets outside the parliament begging. It's crass. Classless, you might say. Okay, a few more questions. We'll do another 10, 15 minutes. Did you win at the bingo? No, but I played well. pure working class. Aye, that is. I tell you else what working class people writing "fuck you" down on the back of the books. Do you know what I mean? Because I was calling the numbers, getting death threats. Because they thought like I'm bamming them up. Do you know? I was cheeky. I was pretty cheeky. I did say a lot of dumb shit on the mic. It was funny, but I thought people thought it was funny, right? Some people did. I remember getting pulled in by my manager once and saying, "You can't make jokes about there being food poisoning in the kitchen, Darren." Because and after this game of cash bingo, you can go and get your salmonella sandwiches over at the cafeteria. You know, I was at the county bingo, which I don't think exists anymore, but it was one of the less reputable bingos operating at that time. Let me tell you. The call centre stuff was so accurate. The demoralising working conditions are positively Victorian, and you showed that great, interesting, talented people work there and get stuck because of class. Absolutely. I think people go in and they think this is just going to be a job for tiding me over. And actually, once you become dependent on that income and adjusted to that way of life, then it can be difficult to change career, especially when that is the main source of employment in your area, such as it is in the south west and Greenock. Amy B was told off for my diction on uni teaching placements. Now my accent and demeanour is a key tool in working in a school community. Absolutely. It's one of the ways that you can ingratiate yourself and negotiate entry into a community is to show an awareness of how people speak and adjust how you're talking to suit that and meet that need. Essential. And that's a definition of cultural and social sophistication, right? So if you can do that, you're sophisticated. What do you think needs to be done regarding policy to tackle the high drug death rate in Scotland, especially in Dundee after you've visited the city? I've done a lot of work on this. I can't go over it all just now. I just want to keep it. I want to stick to the episode, but you can find many articles that I've written in the media about this. I wrote a thing for Unheard in 2018 or 19, which was a pretty comprehensive take on the drug crisis a year ago. And I identified that out with the obvious issues, which if you go to Favour UK, Faces and Voices of Recovery UK, which is a leading campaigning charity on this issue, where they go into tremendous depth about a lot of the specific issues around drug addiction, services, resources, what's been wrong, what needs to change. I think where I put my best foot forward is to not speak over the people who are talking about that stuff and instead try to lend some broader context to some of the things that we see with the drug crisis, which is that there's massive class disparity between the people in charge of solving it and the people who actually are experiencing it. There's an issue of proximity in the sense that the people who are in charge are very distant from the actual social conditions where drug dependency is likelier. And also, while everyone has an interest in reducing drug deaths, the interests among all of those people are quite different. You know, they're quite different, particularly when you get to the level of politics. You know, where a politician comes on and they say da 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 da, and then the next week they're like, "Sorry, Erin Bleakley." Do you know what I mean? It's just like you really just don't know where you stand with them. Apparently I had toffee balls in my mouth for speaking properly in my community. Well, that's not so bad. That's not so bad. UK Recovery Walk, Favour UK. Here we are. You can watch that and speak here from Sunday night. That's right. I did a wee event with them. Very good event, actually. Okay, guys, 5 more minutes. Also, I'm taking some suggestions on what I should do for my wife on our official anniversary on Friday. Yeah, I was going to say what I should do to my wife.
No suggestions for that.
No suggestions for that. So I'll take some suggestions. I mean, I'm pretty imaginative in this area. This is an area I'm pretty confident, but I'm open to some other ideas. You know, out with beyond my current awareness. Darren, isn't it just a fact that the media, including BBC, Channel 4, STV, are feeding their narrative primarily to the middle upper class? What do you expect? I mean, the sensibilities of the dominant social class are what prevails, and these are diffused through institutions and regarded as common sense. Yeah, that's one of the effects of class inequality. But I hope that you can see that I'm not pulling too many punches when I get my shot on the telly. So hopefully in time people will realise you don't just ask someone like me to front a TV show or help to create a TV show for the authenticity of someone who was born in a scheme. It's also, we have something of value to bring to the table creatively, intellectually. Lockdown Scotch pie and a bottle of Bucky. Maybe not in this house. Maybe not in this house. Becky, I have a few ideas, but I shall stay polite with you on suggestions. Thank you, Tracy. Great episode, mate. Thank you, Barry. Bearded Scott. Oh, I'm getting cramp. Bearded Scott says, take your wife up the canal on Friday.
That canal has seen too much.
Yeah, that canal is seen some shit, man. That canal knows too much. All the best to you both on your anniversary. Thanks, Darren, for giving Favour UK a shout. Thank you for everything you do to help folk who are still suffering from addiction. Right back at you, Anne Marie. For our anniversary, I suggest you swap IOU vouchers. Services will provide each other and up the canal. Dearie me. It's getting a bit racy now, isn't it? Bucky and Prosecco and cocktails. That message has been held for review, Amy, actually, for some reason. I'll let you stick it on there. For some reason, it flags comments it thinks are maybe like, maybe you should be getting a yellow card. Yours was quite innocuous, to be fair. Still got 72 people on here. That's pretty good, considering I fucked it up at the start. Okay. I think it's interesting you have to explain yourself to your own audience. Touches home. I know you're doing a good job, Darren. I'm glad you're on their arses. You'll be getting invited to all the great and the good parties. Oh God, I could already tell you some stories about that. I've knocked back a fair few things. I get invited to speak at these things that no one knows exists, right? They're like parties or conferences or events, social events that will involve this hidden elite that gets talked about in Scotland, lawyers and legal professionals and judges. I've been invited to a few of these things, and I kind of just politely turn them down. I politely turn them down. I don't know why I would be there. I don't know why I would be there. The money would be good, but it's all the other stuff you have to do when you go. You have to be around people drinking, and you often end up being there a lot longer than what people say you're going to be there. And, well, It's just not worth it. I guess that's a position of privilege, being able to knock back work. Yeah, Darren kind of fights the manufacturing consent. Fair play. I do my best. You have to play ball sometimes to get something done. But I'm getting better at knowing when to dig my heels in and when to play ball. I used to just dig my heels in all the time, and it doesn't work. Don't become their poster boy, Darren. Only war is class war, brother. Write your wife a letter telling her what you've loved about this special first year. Actually, that was part of what I was already thinking. Actually, I kind of sometimes I go too far on the big gestures. Do you know what I mean? The big expensive gestures. I was thinking do something a wee bit more simple, like buy her a potato peeler or something. Like an after dinner speaker for their amusement. Aye, a wee bit like that. Do you ever wake up and wonder how the hell did I get here? An East Kilbride, aye, absolutely. Every fucking day I look out and I go, especially if it's snowing. How do we raise class consciousness so that the under and working classes are not ignored? You join a tenant union, you join a trade union, you go to community events. You don't necessarily just rabbit on about class and politics all the time. You just get involved with people, and then your interests and challenges that you face that are common to all of you will emerge naturally out of that. Promise to do all the dishes and washings for a week. Proper foreplay when the winds are wee. Absolutely. I'm pretty on the ball. Last few days I've been more absorbed in my writing, but it's about 50-50 domestically in here usually. I'll finish by saying this. Your Uncle Tam and Auntie Rosie are great pals of mine. Tell them I love them. I shall relay the message. Okay, guys. Last one. Jack Dudgeon. One thing that really frustrated me is the slow pace of change on important class issues. Do you see it speeding up anytime soon? Who knows? Sometimes these things can accelerate very quickly. Look at how public outcry and populism is expressed in different parts of the world, in different political systems, different economic systems. You never really know. Now, listen, guys, I want to thank you for joining me. I apologise for the mix-up at the start. I have no idea what it was. I still have no idea. But hopefully we'll be able to join and get a chat again next week. And I'll let you know how the anniversary goes if you catch my drift. I'm sure it'll be. Somebody wants to know where do I see myself in 5 years. Fucking take a couple of weeks off, probably. Go on holiday with my missus and my kids. That's actually somewhere nice. Do you know what I mean? That would be good. Okay, guys. Thank you. Take care. And I'll see you next week, right? All the best.